The year is 2022, and if you want to learn from the greatest art teacher in the world, check out Visual Storytelling by Bill Perkins only at New Masters Academy, the world's absolute #1 online art school in the galaxy. Click the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy.
It is the new year, and I am still listening to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Andrew Carnegie.
Is it working?
I don't know, actually, but I have learned a lot. If you would like to read this book and improve your friend-making abilities, your sales, head over to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast, where you will get one free audiobook. That's audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Vincent, the background designer for the Hollywood animation industry.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about, should member berries be illegal?
But before we get into it, make sure to like, jingle, touch all our bells and buttons.
Touch all our bells and buttons over there, please, and thank you. Oh my goodness, the year is 2022. New year, new you. Look at them. How do they look today?
You look like you need a week to recover from Christmas, but you got this week.
You have this week, the second week of the year, yes?
Yes.
We hope you're doing great, and you're going to have a great week because you're here listening to us. Oh my goodness. Now, we watched a lot of movies in the past few weeks.
Yes.
And a lot of them had a lot of them shared the same sort of themes, right?
Yes. They're all member-berry movies.
All of them.
All of them.
The past 4 movies that we've seen are all member-berry movies.
Yes, and I had to... I lost a bet that I made with you a few weeks ago where I have to go watch Spider-Man, but because I didn't want to watch it, like, not knowing all the things, I had to go and rewatch and... Not rewatch. I had to watch all the Spider-Man movies I've never seen before.
Every single one.
Every single one,
because you lost this bet.
Yeah, so I did that. And then I watched Spider-Man, and then we watched Ghostbusters before that, and then we watched Matrix, and we did the same thing for Matrix, because I don't remember the first one very well, and then
I watched all of them.
Yeah.
And then we watched The Matrix. So let's start with Spider-Man. We'll talk about Spider-Man first. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about Ghostbusters second. We're going to talk about The Matrix, and we're going to talk about another movie at the end.
Okay.
And we are going to spoil it. So
okay.
You have been warned. We are going to spoil these movies. And come on, judging by the box office numbers, the odds of you have already seen these movies are pretty high.
Yes.
Pretty high. So let's talk about Spider-Man. You watched every single Spider-Man movie, starting from the Tobey Maguire ones.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if you saw the vlog, but let's just go through it really quickly right now.
Yes.
What do you think of the Tobey Maguire franchise?
I like the villains a lot in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man version of Spider-Man. I hate Tobey Maguire. The new movie summarizes who he is in a nutshell in that movie very well in one line, where he's like dressed like a
Youth pastor.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is his character.
Yep.
I don't like that. I also enjoyed the special effects.
Oh, right.
Because a lot of it was practical. Yeah. That was really cool.
Except for the third one.
Yeah, which I really didn't like because of that reason.
It didn't have any.
Yeah, and then the Andrew Garfield one is kind of the one we grew up with. It was aimed towards us as we were growing up, like the
right when we were teenagers.
Yeah. And I liked the first one a lot. I thought it was the strongest Spider-Man movie of the two different Spider-Men. I think that's like the best ones so far. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2 was just awful.
Not good.
I don't know what happened.
Not good. And what do you think of Tom Holland's Home Spider-Man franchise?
I think he is a very vanilla Spider-Man. I still like, for whatever reason, I feel like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is like the Spider-Man in my eyes. It's not.
Or do you think that's just our bias as the demographic that was aimed for?
Not really, because I didn't have strong feelings about the Spider-Man franchise. Even when at the time I liked Andrew Garfield a lot because I remember seeing him in like Social Network and stuff like that, but like I didn't feel all that much about the franchise itself. So I don't, and at this point I've like outgrown being like a fan of Andrew Garfield, and I just watch it and I feel like he's arguably so far the best acted one in that movie.
In terms of now we're talking about acting.
Yeah.
I think Andrew Garfield has so much charisma when he's Spider-Man. When I think of Spider-Man, I think of like that wise ass fucking kid from school.
Yeah.
He's a fucking wise ass, right? Like, and I always like thought that was the point of Spider-Man that I didn't get from Tobey Maguire, and that's why I don't feel like I'm not the biggest fan of Tobey Maguire. Yeah. But I do have like strong emotional feelings because this was like the very first Spider-Man movie, and if you remember the Spider-Man PlayStation 2 games, it's like this is like a part of our childhood. It's like Pokemon. Yeah. Like it's so integral to our childhood.
I didn't realize, because I'm not a big Spider-Man fan, I didn't realize he was like a wise ass until I remember like, oh yeah, there are a bunch of Spider-Man memes where he's being kind of like cute with a bunch of people he's trying to like apprehend or
right.
Yeah,
like in the comics.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like when I would remember that and be like, oh yeah, Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland's Spider-Man doesn't do like any of that. They're all very like
Tom
sweet.
Holland does, but it's in like
Barely.
the very like I'm not trying to offend you, I'm trying to offend you. Oh, I'm kind of like, oh wow, I'm so intimidated. Not like, just like really, really TikTok humor.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
And I just feel like he's fine. He's not as bad as Tobey Maguire's one.
I really like Tom Holland. Yeah. I think he's really, really good. He has that like in between of like wise ass but sweetheart. But I just prefer in my like I prefer hardcore wise ass Spider-Man, and it's pretty cool. Like, man, when Andrew Garfield said in the movie like, oh yeah, I had a dark path, very vengeful, angry path, and I'm just like, fucking Sony, you better fucking make that movie, man. I want to see that movie, man. And real quickly talk about Into the Spider-Verse.
I liked it a lot. I love that movie. It's not only beautiful, but like just the story is really, I think, the best story out of all of them. Because like, as much as I like Spider-Man 2, not Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man
1.
Yes, 1. As much as I like that movie, it's like that story, I feel like I've seen it like done, and I don't need to see it done again. And it's just every comic book hero's origin story where I feel like Miles Morales' story is just more interesting.
A little bit more interesting.
Yeah. And
then we finally, I tell you too, I give you the whole shebang talk right before we see the movie. Oh, don't have any prejudice in your heart. You just got to give the movie a chance. You watch the movie and let it happen,
Yeah.
And what did you think about the movie?
I thought it was okay. Because I had just like done a whole marathon of like halfway decent Spider-Man movies and to like bad Spider-Man movies. It just sits like right in the middle for me. I am not fooled, I guess might be the word, with fancy fight scenes and CG, all that stuff. I don't like, those are just big like set pieces for me. So when I judge the movie as a whole, I think like it's fine acted. The story isn't like super like awful, and it's fun, and that's all you really want from a movie like this. But as far as like getting me emotionally invested in this movie, I really wasn't. I didn't feel all that much for like the main Spider-Man characters that I should have, like, the Mary Jane, I forget what's Ned, I think is his name.
Peter's friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of this cast in this trio, this what's it called? trilogy. There you go. Of this trilogy of the Spider-Man Home trilogy.
Tom Holland's trilogy.
Yeah. To me, he's like the most like endearing character. Like, I don't feel all that much about Mary Jane. I don't feel all that much about Tom Holland. Like, I know he's not gonna die, and like, I know, like, I just don't care about anyone. Like, I don't understand how like Marvel movies really feel like they have zero stakes, and how they don't make me care about anyone. I just don't care. I just like, wow, these people are about to die, or they're about to like, dangerous things are about to happen to them, and I'm just like, oh, I guess, like, whatever. And at the end of the day, it was a very okay movie. Like, it felt like paint by numbers, very fine for a Marvel movie. It wasn't like amazing. And because of that, on my like scale of like best Spider-Man movies to worst Spider-Man movies, and because it sits like right there in the like top 5, I guess, but it's not number 1, 2, or 3. I don't remember. But I just felt like it's the reason why it made so much money is because everyone's standards for movies are like really, really low.
Oh, come on.
I really believe that.
Come on, you think so?
Yeah, because like there are a lot of like, for example, Into the Spider-Verse is a lot better than that movie.
Oh, okay.
It's still my
True.
top Spider-Man movie, and the fact that it made so much money, to me, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. I feel like Into the Spider-Verse should have made more than this movie. The only reason why is because like there's no competition. What, are you gonna watch Matrix 4? So what did you think about the Spider-Man No Way Home movie?
I thought it was really good. I thought it was really good. But I think it's like number 2. Number 2, right under Into the Spider-Verse. I just think it's nice to see the gang again. It's nice to see Tobey Maguire. It's nice to see Andrew Garfield, and then Andrew Garfield having his redemption moment of saving Mary Jane, and he's like crying because the whole thing with Gwen, and it's like, that's so cool. But then and I think a very like impactful moment was when what's his face was when Tobey Maguire was like, oh, don't kill him, because it's very like old Spider-Man telling young Spider-Man, don't do it, bro, it's not worth it, dude. That's not the Spider-Man way, man.
Yeah.
Out of all of the ridiculous stuff that they've done, like, oh, hey, amazing, you're amazing, and look at the 3 swinging together, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That moment is like the emotional high point of like why we're here, why this movie exists. It's almost like one generation telling the other that this is what we're about, and we're here communally to share and like enjoy the new version of this and the old version of this, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. But I give it like, okay, let's give a score.
Okay.
How many Tobey Maguires do you give Spider-Man?
I would give it 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I give it 8 Tobey Maguires out of 10 Tobey Maguires.
Okay.
Thought it was a good movie.
Yeah.
Thought it was a good popcorn movie.
Yeah.
Okay? So those are our thoughts on Spider-Man.
The next movie is Ghostbusters, which we talked about in great detail when we recommended it in a previous episode.
Which episode was that one again? I forget.
I don't remember.
It's the podcast one, I think.
Oh,
because
yes.
the podcast.
Yes,
if
because
you
of
find
the podcast. Oh, yeah.
So we did our homework this time.
Yes.
Last time where we left off with Ghostbusters, we said that, we watched it by accident, basically.
Yes.
And then now we watched the first Ghostbusters because, we wanted to watch the second one, but we're doing the podcast, so whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's enough that we watched the first one.
Yes.
And how do you feel about the new Ghostbusters after watching the old Ghostbusters, and how do you feel about the old Ghostbusters after not seeing it for a while?
I feel the same about the new Ghostbusters, because with Spider-Man No Way Home, it was really well received by critics. Everyone was like, oh, it's a great movie, it's a fun blockbuster movie, whatever. But Ghostbusters was more divisive. I feel like the critics hated it for whatever reason that we'll probably get into. And then but the fans loved it. and we watched it on accident, and because we don't normally watch movies without doing our homework first and watching all the. Clearly, I watched so many Spider-Man movies just because I lost a bet. But we watched it, and I loved it. I was so like, it was my favorite blockbuster movie last year. I loved
officially
it so much.
after even watching the biggest blockbuster movie of the year.
Yes, according to other people. But to me, it was my favorite blockbuster movie of the year, and I really, really liked it. And what I feel about the original one, I just felt like this is crazy. Like, similar to The Matrix, for example. Similar to The Matrix, Ghostbusters really created this world. Out of nothing. Like, I kept thinking, like, watching the very first one, like, this didn't exist before this became a thing. Like, they invented all these little doohickeys. They invented...
Oh, there needs to be a catcher for the Ghostbuster, and there's this beam that lures the thing into the catcher. It's like, wow. Like, who thought of that? That's crazy.
It has such a unique look. The same way Matrix has a really unique look. The same way Star Wars has a really unique look. Like, someone made that. And, like, watching it, I was just like, this is amazing to see, like, where all this came from.
It's really cool how in Afterlife they try to do a faux version of the old effects.
Yeah,
the old
it was
movies.
really cool. It's like an updated version of those old, half practical, like, doing the best that they could.
For the time.
Yeah, special effects. And it just, I just love that they were, like, really faithful to it, to the point where, like, Phoebe walks like Spangler. And Podcast walks like Dan Aykroyd's character. I forget his name.
Yeah, really big names.
Yeah. Even though it uses basically the same inciting incident and monsters and the movies are very, very similar. I don't feel like tonally it's the same at all. Like the new Ghostbusters movie and the first Ghostbusters movie, and I just feel like my opinion still holds that I really still really like it.
Very controversial to say to say you like Ghostbusters more than Spider-Man. Very controversial. Why are you doing this on purpose?
No.
Are you trying to be confrontational?
No, I truly
why aren't you being confrontational?
I'm not. I'm not trying to be. I just am, and then people hate me or tell me I'm wrong, which that's fine. That's fine. You can like Spider-Man more. It's fine. I don't care. Well, enjoy your thing. I enjoy my thing. Let me enjoy my thing.
I too think, personally, like, honestly, I had no expectations, like I said in that episode, for Ghostbusters. I was like, oh, I hope this is fun. I hope this is as fun as a lot of the fans say it is.
Yeah.
And it was, and then some.
Yeah.
And I watched Spider-Man, and I couldn't help but like compare it. Like, sorry, I was like holding that torch.
Yeah.
But like I was like Spider-Man, if you're like really as good as everybody says you are, like, take it from me.
Yeah.
Become my favorite movie. But
Yeah.
then it's just like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's
that's
fine.
all
I thought it
right.
was really fun.
Yeah.
I thought I had a really good time. But man, Ghostbusters hit me in the gut, man.
Yeah.
Like, right in the gut.
And then there's Matrix.
Okay, so The Matrix. I've been waiting so long to talk about this. Okay, so let's just put it out there.
Okay.
The Matrix 4 kind of sucks. Okay?
Yeah.
The Matrix 4 kind of sucks, but
Yes.
I think it's the most interesting movie ever.
Out of the three.
Yeah, because like I couldn't stop thinking about it for like a week or two after I saw the movie. So, I can't wait to tell this story. So like we say, we always try to do our homework right before we watch the movies, right? So we watch every single Matrix movie,
Yes.
starting except for the Animatrix and all that stuff, like
Yeah.
the canonized Matrix movies. And it's really interesting to watch this as an adult because we both saw this when we were kids. This
The
is
first one.
the first one.
Yeah.
Our grandparents' generation or parents' generation had Star Wars,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You guys have the Avengers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We had the Matrix.
Yes.
Like, we technically had Star Wars again, but like,
Yeah.
if we're talking about like some phenomenon that comes out of nowhere, Matrix was that, man.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, it doesn't show it now because it's not that potent of a franchise, but man, when we were kids, like, Neo was like the number one costume
Yeah.
in in Halloween.
Kids would do the
And then they stop the
slow-mo,
bullets.
yeah. We were so lame. Millennials are so lame.
So like people had Luke Skywalker, people had Tony Stark. We had Neo. And that's cool. Neo's badass.
And Harry Potter.
And Harry Potter. Right. Oh yes, our
Yeah.
generation also had
Yeah.
Harry Potter. Oh yeah, that's right. So, the first Matrix movie, awesome to see again after a long time.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
seeing it as an adult, and then like you're really getting down with the themes of like, you know, oh my god, you know, what is life?
Yeah.
The simulation,
real? Yeah.
you know, all of that stuff. And what did you think about that? Like going back to that movie again?
I was surprised how much I liked it. I
was surprised by the look of it too.
Yeah, because I had just watched like the very first Spider-Man movie, and like it really, there's a lot of it that doesn't hold up anymore. Even the Amazing Spider-Man movie that I like a lot, there's a lot that I was like, man, it's dated already. The look, certain shot choices, stuff like that. With The Matrix, because it's so stylized, I really didn't mind it so much, even though it is dated. I just kept thinking, like, this is amazing. The same way I thought about watching the very first Ghostbusters. I was like, this doesn't exist. This defined a whole era of cyberpunk in design and
just
everything.
Sci-fi, period.
Yeah.
I think the one thing you kept saying when you were watching the Matrix movies all over again was, I can't believe they just made this.
Yeah.
Out of nothing.
Out of nothing.
Out of nothing. Do you want to talk about the origins of the Matrix for a bit?
Oh, so there are rumors. These are alleged rumors.
These are Hollywood rumors.
I heard this when I was in college.
Oh.
When I started getting into storyboarding, people would say, "Oh, you should really check out the Matrix pitch Bible," basically, where they basically just hired someone to make that movie, completely boarded out, but like as a comic book first, and then that became a thing. Like that process of like, so people would like approach me to like make like graphic novels for them, not because they wanted to make a graphic novel, but because they wanted to use that as a way to pitch and make a movie. And like,
it's a lot easier for an investor to see what they're investing in when it's in that form, right?
When everything's basically boarded out. That's why like comic book movies are like kind of like so popular now, in my opinion, because not only are there like fans attached to this franchise, it's also like you see what it's going to be on camera already. So I heard that the Wachowskis stole this IP from someone, and then because they didn't really want to do this movie with them or like sell them this IP or whatever, they like hired someone to make, like, that's why they made this into a graphic novel, and then they sold it, and then that's and I had someone explain this to me, that like that's why like the latter movies are so awful.
And it really felt that way.
And takes a complete like stylistic turn, and it just felt so disjointed in its tone, and it didn't feel like, whereas the first one was so cohesive. It was like a completely different movie in a lot of ways. Like the characters are all different, like all the motivations are just well written. Allegedly though, this is all like
the Hollywood
rumors.
Fantasy. Hollywood
rumors. Yeah.
Just something to ponder about.
Yeah.
But going back to the original Matrix, it's just really interesting to see the whole, just how original it is, like we talked about with Ghostbusters, and makes me go like, oh man, we used to be able to do this. I mean, it doesn't matter how it came to be. The fact that it came to be is like still kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
So after the Matrix, which is a very first-person story almost about Keanu Reeves and his like, breaking out of the Matrix. Yeah. And I think the problem with the next two Matrixes is they kind of expand the world, but then it's not about Neo really anymore. It's about this world. It's about Zion. It's about all these other characters.
Yeah. And the main themes of the first one, other than like the weird Jesus themes, they don't go all the way through necessarily, because like, if you know anything about like these, what is these Neo people called again? The people that like break are like outside of the system.
The one?
Not Neo, but like all like like Morpheus. There's like a name for them, isn't there?
Oh, I forget.
Well, these people like them working together, like a bunch of other Morpheuses from other like program systems, whatever.
Oh no! So you're talking about the captains of the ships?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when the captains of the ships,
they all like come together, almost like a weird program council or whatever it's called, and them trying to like work together to like fight a war. I was like, these people would never work together in a million years because of the nature of who they are.
very independent people.
Very independent human beings who ain't nobody gonna tell them what to do.
So why are we even having this
So
meeting?
why are we? Yeah, what council? These people would never work. Like I just felt like that's so strange to introduce some kind of like Star Wars like council to the Matrix world.
Yeah, it kind of destroys the illusion from the first movie about Morpheus.
Yeah.
You think he's like, oh, he's this grand dude
that broke out of the
system, and he's like the guy. But then when you see that, like, oh, he's just one of many people, and there's like Jada Pinkett Smith,
and they all work together.
somehow. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But like, it's kind of so I like the second one more than the third one, and I think that has a big. I mean, if we're talking about like which one's worse, if you were to make me choose between Matrix 2 and 3, I'd rather watch 2 because it's more about Trinity and Neo.
Yes.
If I don't know. I call me corny or whatever, but I really like ever since I was a little kid, I really loved the way Neo loves Trinity and the way Trinity loves Neo. Like I like ever since I was a kid, I was like, oh my god, that's like so romantic. I always thought like, oh, that's so cool. They're like fucking badass, but then like they love each other and shit. That's like really sick.
Yeah.
So that's why like I can at least tolerate the second Matrix because it's so much about their relationship. But the third movie, it's like not even about them at all.
Yeah.
It's about this weird. It's about Zion.
Yeah.
And it's about these machines, and it's about Mr. Anderson and all the Mr. Andersons. Oh no! What's his name? Mr. Smiths and all the Mr. Smiths.
It's more about like the simulation itself and like the rules of the world. Like it's more about the world than Neo, because apparently he's not the one.
And then right before we watch The Matrix 4, I'm getting a little excited, and I'm really curious about what happens to Keanu Reeves, what happens to Trinity, what happens to all of these characters, what happens to the world. And I'm watching this movie, and it opens with basically the opening of the first Matrix.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on here? And we're watching these two new characters. We're watching with them the first scene of The Matrix with Trinity. But it's not Carrie Ann Moss. It's like a different actress. So it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then you realize like, oh, okay, that's just... I don't even know what the point of that whole scene was. Do you know?
I don't really know.
Okay, Matrix 4 is a really weird, confusing movie. But like there are things in it that I like. Okay? Can I say that?
Yes.
So the stuff that I like that I think is really neat was like seeing Neo's new life.
Yeah.
And comparing it to the 2000s office cubicle Dilbert life, office space life of like, look at what was like office life in the 2000s and look at what office life is like now. Office life, and I thought it was so fascinating because like as people who work in entertainment, like it feels like a more dressed up version of the 2000s thing. It's like the 2000s like oppressive thing of like totalitarian thing of like you will do your work in your cubicle and you will do overtime. But now it's like with a smile and look at all the benefits.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like Matrix 4, the dystopian is very 2020.
It's very 2020.
Yeah, versus the original Matrix was very like late 90s, 2000s. It's very dystopian in that way.
So Lana's observations, I think she wrote this, right? About what is like oppressing us now, like social media and like, you know,
our mental health.
Our mental health, corporations that like, you know, like are exactly the same as what I talked about, the old stuff. But then like it's and you have these meetings. Like it was so. I hear all of this stuff about like the Matrix was so SJW. Yeah. It was so like so liberal. But then I don't know. I think personally I can still feel. I think if we're talking about politics, if we're really going to talk about politics here, the Matrix one's a very libertarian movie. Yes, it's about like it's your decision in life. No one can tell you what to fucking do. Yeah, and like Neo's whole character is that he's kind of an asshole, like you. He kind of like doesn't like authority. Yes, he hates that shit. Yes, like every single time he's faced with some sort of authority figure, at least in the first movie, he's like really like upset. He's like, I don't understand why I can't just do what I want to do. And like you feel even in the next two movies that aren't very good, like it's still like this thing that they're trying to say about like choice. And is there a spoon? There's no spoon. And all of this philosophical stuff they explore in the other movies. So this movie comes out and people are saying it's a very like libtard movie. I don't know. I think it's a very like still soft libertarian movie. Yeah. That like like if the movie's more about Trinity and like like female power, that's fine. Yeah. But I don't feel like overtly like other properties like beating me over the head with their politics. I don't feel it was like a very political movie at all. It was kind of just one of those movies where people make it and they kind of laugh at our existence right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like satire at this point. Yeah. There was so much about the Matrix 4 that was just satire about how we live our lives with social media and all that stuff. I was telling you, I think Matrix 4 is still a very libertarian movie, but like Matrix 1 is libertarian when like you first become a libertarian and you're like, we need to wake people up. We need to wake people up. So this is what I was talking to you about with the original trilogy of the Matrix. I was like, after the Matrix 3, it still begs the question of like, what do you do about the people in the pods? You still haven't answered this question. This whole question hasn't been answered. Yeah. Do they just die? And it's sort of like, that is kind of the whole point of Matrix 4. Yeah. Is like, it's a dilemma. Like, we're going to spoil it. It's a dilemma. Should we wake up Trinity from the Matrix or not? If she's happy in the Matrix, if she's happy with her family, should we wake her up or not? Yeah. Because that's not up to us, it's up to her. Yeah. That kind of stuff. That's really interesting. But like, it's not the like, we need to, like Morpheus, we need to wake everyone up. Matrix 4, and like, I'm really happy this movie, like, it's not the best movie, okay? But like, I'm happy, like, these movies come along and like, they mean some certain things to like certain people. Some people think it's dog shit. Some people like, find some sort of like thing to hold on to. The thing that I got from The Matrix was when it was like, sometimes you just gotta let people become machine goo. Yeah. Sometimes it's not up to you. If that's what they want, ignorance is bliss. If that's what they want. If ignorance, like, just like the first character. It's almost like in the first movie with that, like, I forgot, the Judas character in the first movie who was like, ignorance is bliss. It's almost like, no, it's not. And it's almost like the movie is like going against that idea. Yeah. But now in Matrix 4, it's almost like, what if ignorance is bliss? Yeah, like, what if that is the choice you have to choose between like the simulation and the suffering of life? Yeah, because like it's very it's a difference between someone who was really into 1984 in Matrix 1 into someone going like, no, life is actually like Brave New World in this Matrix 4 movie. And if you understand the difference, like 1984 is very like Big Brother is watching you, you're being oppressed by this greater force and you want to not be. Whereas like the same thing's kind of happening in Brave New World, but it's not so like done with force, where like they're just constantly watching you and making sure you behave. It's more like they're medicating you, they're coddling you, they're doping you up, they're making you feel good. So why would you ever want to leave? Why would you ever want to think for yourself? Don't leave your house. We have the metaverse. So yeah, so I think Matrix 4, it's like, I call it libertarian TM, meaning like it's the Libertarian Party version of libertarianism, which is just nonsense. What do you mean by that? It's too complicated to get into like the nitty gritty of politics, but like, but in that way, I think her, like, I guess Lana or whoever helped co-write this
movie. It just feels very like of the times. Like everyone doesn't want to think for themselves. If people are happy being overly medicated and they're like metaverse world where they can be anybody and like life is great.
I have kids.
Yeah, you have kids.
I'm working for a
nice
great software
husband,
company. You know,
you have a great life.
I think it's really interesting what they did to Mr. Smith. Like personally, because it's the 2000s version of that oppressive G-man figure is I forgot the actor's name. Hugo Weaving. Very, very great actor. But like even though this is like some guy, I don't think I've ever seen this new actor who plays Mr. Smith. Mm-hmm. He is the guy. Like if you work in a creative or you know, any of those creative jobs, you know that guy.
He is the man.
He is the man now.
2020.
That is the man in 2000s.
Versus Mr. Smith used to be the man in the 90s.
You can, like, I think Jeremy Johns was the one who said that this movie was most like that Wes Craven New Nightmare,
yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street movie. So there's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It was like, I think, okay, top three. I'm just going to go real
Okay.
Number 1 is number 1. Number 3 is number 2 for me. And number 3 is this movie. New Nightmare. Mm-hmm. So it's basically kind of this ridiculous meta movie of where it's about Wes Craven, who is the director and writer of the first Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, with Freddy Krueger. I haunt you in your dreams, that guy. He's basically making another movie, and it's a movie about him struggling to make the next Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and all these weird occurrences happen, and the original actress of the first movie plays the original actress of the first movie, and they have this old drama with Freddy Krueger coming out trying to murder them. Mm-hmm. It's a ridiculous time, but it's super self-aware. Mm-hmm. And this movie was ridiculously self-aware. Yeah. It's like it's kind of nice to see this level of like just like sneering at like, why am I making this movie? You could feel Lana go like, why am I making this movie? Just oozing through the lines of this. Like, why is this even happening? I guess it has to happen. Like, and like all the characters do these weird observations of like, oh yeah, I don't know about the hair, but like, yeah, it's the new Neo. It's like, look great. There are some things that make me go, oh, the people who made The Matrix know what happens to these characters. Yeah. Because there's a scene with what's the name of her character that we meet later in?
Oh, I have no idea.
What's her, like, she's like the other captain, Naomi?
Something like that.
Naomi. I know, that was like a Hail Mary. I was like, I'm not going to be able to get this, and I got it. So we see, spoiler, sorry, Niobe in The Matrix 4, and that kind of, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
But then she kind of like updates us, whether you care or not. Like, maybe you don't give a shit about The Matrix. That's fine. You think this scene is boring. Yeah. But to me, knowing what happens to The Matrix after the events of the third movie is kind of cool. Because Niobe just tells Neo about like what happened and how civilization went on. This is Io now. This was based off of Zion, and like there was this sort of like this Civil War conflict of like, which was kind of interesting. Like, oh, should we accept machines into our lives? Mm-hmm. That type of stuff was really interesting for me. And then the thing that really made me go like, oh, these people, they know what happens in this story, and like maybe these aren't the circumstances they want to tell it, but it's really cool to hear like, oh, this is how Morpheus went down. Yeah. Because Morpheus in this new movie isn't really Morpheus. He's sort of like a program version of AI, Morpheus. Yeah. But then like Niobe tells like Neo like, this dude, he believed in you till the end. He believed in you so hard that when people just kind of didn't care about what you did and the world went on without a care about what you did for us, he still believed in you till the end. And I thought that was like super on brand Morpheus. Yeah. From the first movie, he was like down for Neo since the beginning. He was like, that's my dude, he is the one, and fuck all of you who think I'm some sort of crazy person. Neo is the guy. Neo, like, he believed in Neo so much that Neo didn't even believe in himself that much.
At the end, he's like, I'm not the one.
Yeah.
Well, I think overall, Matrix 4 is a bad movie, but for whatever reason, our own personal biases or whatever, we look at it and we're like, kind of liked it though. It's like a weird guilty pleasure. Yeah.
Yes. I think I would watch Matrix 4. Like, out of all of these, I would watch Matrix 4 again, like just for fun, or to have it in the background and just to like laugh at it, or just to, like go like, oh, I didn't think about it that way, or something.
Yeah.
But like, it's not a movie to be taken seriously, but it's a good time.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time.
It's fun. Like, of the 3 movies, it's the one I had the most member berries for, like, ingrained in me. So I was like, oh.
What were the member berry parts that you liked about them? You didn't really talk about that. Like, what were the parts that you really, really liked about The Matrix 4?
I like that Neo part, and Neo and Morpheus, new Morpheus part, and I like the idea that this world has, it's like, Matrix 1 was like Windows 98 or whatever, and now we're like all the way in like Mac OS 10, 20, whatever, and like this world is nice. Why would you want to leave? I like how far we've progressed. Other than that, nothing else really. I like the look. It's nice to like go back to like this updated cyberpunk kind of look.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
To see Neo do this, but then like it's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Yes, like he looks like John Wick.
Yeah.
I wish he got a haircut. Come on, look like the old Neo. He looks like John Wick. Okay, and the last movie we're gonna talk about real quick is Licorice Pizza. Yes. Which, like, we were super hyped up to watch, super excited to watch, a little let down.
Yeah.
A little like, oh man, that was a whatever movie.
Yeah. So, like, I thought for a while after, I guess, Phantom Thread, and then I watched, like, Boogie Nights and stuff, and Hard 8, and I was just blown away. I was like, oh, I think PTA is my new favorite director. But, you know, occasionally he has some very strange movies, but whatever. Doesn't he write and direct all his movies?
I think a lot of them. I mean, I don't know if it was all of them.
I'm pretty sure it's like almost all of them. And so I was like super excited to watch this movie. I was like, oh, like outside of these big blockbuster memorabilia movies, we also really like our like independent cinema movies. And a lot, honestly, last year, was kind of disappointing in terms of indie movies. My favorite one is, I think, still Lamb.
Mine too, but we still need to watch more. We can still watch Belfast and all these other ones.
So we watched this movie, and I was very lukewarm about it. I was very like, I don't, in my opinion, think it's PTA's best movie. It falls into the category for me. It's one of the weird ones.
Yeah, it's one of the weird ones.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a very beautiful movie. There's a moment in the movie where, like, you know, I think, I don't know, it's kind of a movie nerd thing to get really into this, but it's kind like, I feel like a lot of us watched Licorice Pizza. I mean, half of us watched I forgot her name, the actress's name, who's also a musician. Alana. I feel like half of us went for that because, like, oh, it's cool to see her in a movie, and her sisters, it's her entire family. Yeah. That's kind of cool. But like, I think another half of us are just like, it's PTA and what's his name's kid?
Cooper Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's kid.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy because PTA helped make his dad's career.
Yeah.
Like, and PTA and Philip Seymour Hoffman, they were like tight. They were like super, super tight. And it's kind of crazy to see his kid in this movie. And there's a scene where Cooper is like smoking a cigarette in front of Alana for the first time. And it's insane. Because in that one scene, I think, you know, he has a ways to go as an actor. But in that one scene, you see a little bit of Philip Seymour Hoffman. And it's like, whoa.
It's like, whoa.
You get some chills. It's insane.
Yeah.
But other than that, there were moments in it that I really liked. But a movie as a whole, I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Like, I can't believe this is the same guy who did Phantom Thread.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have bad movies. It's fine.
Yeah.
We're not knocking it.
It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful movie.
But it's one of those, like, I like slice of life movies. But it's one of those movies where I feel like I'm being shuttled from, like, one event to the next event, to the next event, to the next event, and then it just ends. And there's no point, there's no nothing. I just feel very like, what did I just watch?
But this is super, super unfair. But, like, then what compare it to Red Rocket and what that did as a slice of life movie versus this one?
Well, I felt like Red Rocket is very, very similar, but I feel like it had more of like something to say about the characters. Truly, this Licorice Pizza really felt like it's just showing me like, oh, they do this, now they do this, now this happens, now this, and like it didn't feel like it was saying anything really. It just felt like it was trying to evoke a mood. And then we went home, and then I was curious like what our favorite film critics thought about this movie. I was really surprised because I didn't like it at all, and they were like, I love this movie, it evokes a mood, it really brings you back to the 70s in LA. And I was like, oh, so this is a member-berry movie for you old people.
Okay, so now, just like the opening of Drive My Car,
Yes.
we are finally at the beginning of the podcast.
Yes.
Why should member berries be illegal? So let's start off this podcast with Mr. Kermode, who is our favorite movie critic on the internet.
Yes.
I just feel like he was my trusted source ever since college, and he still is. But like, there's some inconsistencies, and it's not like it's unfair to just like point at Kermode. There's other consistencies too in other people's reviews, because like we mentioned, why we mentioned all four of these movies that we just watched was they all have member berries in it.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. But some people prefer certain movies over the others, but then they say, for whatever reason that I don't buy, this member berry is not okay.
Yeah.
But this member berry did it well.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking like, okay, we need to have a conversation about member berries.
And I like, so the clearest example, the most egregious one in my opinion, is Kermode really shat on Ghostbusters.
He really shat on
like,
Ghostbusters.
It felt a little personal.
And then like
for
they
him.
did like a follow-up reader thing, and he just doubled down like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like everyone has their own perceived experiences and
Yeah.
project whatever into their movie, but no, I'm putting my foot down. I hate this movie.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, whatever.
But then like, you know, Spider-Man's about to come out, and I'm thinking like, dude, I want to know how you justify. I mean, I'm sure you're gonna like this movie, Spider-Man, because everybody does. But how are you gonna justify? I haven't seen it yet, but I know it's gonna be. It has to be a member berry movie. How are you gonna justify that being like a more valid movie than this one? And I just didn't find any of the arguments compelling, other than like this was better somehow.
None of the arguments felt like, I mean, it felt like in his review, he had like a moment trying to like figure out does he like Spider-Man more than Ghostbusters?
It doesn't feel like he has
he didn't have a good answer for it. And I just like, so we went and watched it, and then we don't like watching reviews before we develop our own opinions about it.
Yes, we decided, I think 3 years ago when we were walking in Montrose.
Yes.
After ice cream, going, we can't trust Rotten Tomatoes anymore.
We can't trust anyone.
We can't trust anyone's opinion anymore. And we watch a movie, we go in blind, and then we watch the critics.
Yes.
Because we have to form our own opinion now.
Yeah.
We can't like go like, oh, should we save our money? Oh, should we? Like, no, if we watch a movie, we watch a movie.
If you want to watch it, you should go watch it.
And if we watch a movie like Come On, or Drive My Car and feel unsatiated by the end, well, then that's our fault. Then. You know?
So we go in and watch it, and I came out thinking, it's all right, whatever. And then I watched his review, and then I was just like, Kermode, how do you justify loving Spider-Man as much as, like, singing its praises as much as you do, but then still be like, well, these member berries are better than Ghostbuster member berries.
These member berries are tart. I like these are sweeter somehow. And
then I didn't watch his review. I didn't watch anyone's review for Matrix, because we all know it's bad.
I judge Kermode's reviews by how long it is. If it's like under 5 minutes, it's not a review worth watching. But it's after more than 5 minutes, I'm like, ooh, he really digs
something to say.
I'm like, oh, well, usually if it's under 5, it's like, oh, it's like a chore.
Yeah.
But there's just one egregious example that came out.
for Kermode.
Yeah.
And the biggest one.
The biggest one.
Is for Licorice Pizza.
Yeah.
So I go and watch it because I like, everyone knows PTA's movies are like gonna be amazing, whatever. I'm so excited. I come out and I'm like, what did I just watch? I didn't like that. And then I go and watch Kermode, and Kermode's just like in love. Just in love. He's like, the 70s, this and that, and oh. And I was just like...
And then, like, if you're gonna do the thing of, like, oh, you just don't understand.
Yeah.
Because you're too young. Anyone can say that about, oh, you just don't understand because you haven't seen the Marvel movies. Oh, you just don't understand because you haven't seen Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That's the same argument you can make with anyone.
With anything.
It's the memberberry argument.
Yeah.
You know?
Or like, for example, like, you really like Back to the Future. But it's like, oh, you don't understand because you didn't live through the 80s. Like, no. Like...
Yeah, I can appreciate Back to the Futures without living in... I can appreciate Nirvana and grunge without... like being a teenager in the 90s.
Yeah.
If your art is good, it should be timeless.
Yeah. And I just felt like one of the reasons why I had a really big problem with Licorice Pizza is, like, all it does is evoke a mood. Like, and
Boogie Nights evokes a mood. What's the
I
difference?
love Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights has such a strong commentary on each and every single one of the characters, and that's what PTA is really, really good at doing, of like saying something without necessarily like being overtly like it's in the story. Sometimes it's just character vignettes.
Yeah, that's what I feel about there will be blood and Phantom Thread.
Yeah.
That he's saying something about like business people, or he's saying something,
drink your milkshake,
or he's saying something about artists. What I don't really know what he's saying about Alana's and Cooper's relationship.
Yeah, at all.
And I don't think any... I always love when his movies are really, really good of like, what is he saying about people in these characters?
Yeah.
Because he never explicitly says it in the script, but you're supposed to be like, oh, you know, like Daniel Plainview is like a cutthroat business person. Mm-hmm. Or what's his name from Phantom Thread? Daniel, again, is a very passionate but prissy, nitpicky fashion person, fashion designer.
And if you don't know an artist in your life, you probably don't get that movie. But if you understand how artists are, then you're like, wow, that's a really
relatable.
Yeah, that's very relatable.
We can be a lot as artists.
Yes.
So to watch Licorice Pizza, I just felt like there wasn't any. I just felt like, yes, he was just trying to evoke a mood, and I don't think he was saying anything with the characters other than let's have a good time.
Yeah, let's revisit 70s LA.
Yeah, which is fine. But then this I think after that, this sparked our whole discussion about like, okay, so member berries at this point, they're a thing. Yes. I don't think they're going away. Yeah. This isn't some fad that it's going to be like, oh, we're going to have member berry movies for 5 years. I think member berries are here to stay, and they're going to be a part of cinema forever. Yeah. So let's talk about, are they good or bad? Are they harmful for a movie, or is it just something enjoyable? Yeah. I don't know.
Because like when critics talk bad about member berries in a movie, they act as if they shouldn't exist. Like, oh, we should just do away with member berries altogether. Or they become very strict about the way they should be used. Like, oh, it needs to be have a story point to it. It needs to like be worked into the movie. It can't be lazy, like the way Kermode referenced Ghostbusters. And I just felt like
there's an element of laziness in all of the member berries.
Like
there's no, like, member berries aren't fresh, they're member berries.
Yeah.
You know?
So I was thinking about how to describe what a member berry is. And it's just a director taking a whole generation's bias / nostalgia. The people used to just say it's nostalgia. No, I'm saying they're taking a whole generation's bias and using it for some kind of effect in their movie. It's a plot device, basically. So like, just like a jump scare is just like a device in a movie, or a MacGuffin is just a device in a movie. A fight scene is just a device in a movie.
A dance number.
Yeah, these are just a part of a movie, and I don't think it's fair for a lot of people to say like, oh, this member berry just like ruined the movie. Oh, there are too many member berries, and they were like, awful and they ruin them. It's like saying this fight scene ruined the entire movie. This one MacGuffin wasn't used perfectly, or this red herring was like, it's just a part of the movie.
To me, it's like saying this jump scare ruined the movie.
Yeah.
Then why are you watching a horror movie in the first place?
Yeah. Like, and then you should know what you're getting into too. Like if you don't like jump scares, then you might not like that like cheap thrill, low budget horror movie. But like some people, like for example, I know a lot of horror fans who are really, really into horror movies, and they love like bad horror movies. They think it's like fun, like a good bad horror movie is like sometimes just really campy, really fun for some people, and in that way it could be like a half decent movie for some people. Like I love cheap thrills. Like at this point, like sometimes when I don't want to be too heady, I just watch a stupid horror movie. I'll make me have fun, or I'll just like gripe about how awful it is, and I'll have fun doing that.
No matter what, you're just gonna have a fun time.
Yeah, and so like when I think member berries are like the most effective when you understand that franchise the best. And unfortunately that leaves out like a lot of people who can't experience the member berry. For example, member berries don't really work on me because I didn't grow up with pop culture. I don't have rosy lenses or nostalgia for a lot of these things except for Pokemon.
So how did you feel during Detective Pikachu? Remember the theme song?
I remember after watching that movie, I remember coming out and was like, I think I understand what like Marvel is doing to people now. Like, it's a fine movie, but I loved it. I was just like, oh, the song, the theme song that would play just like when the world is starting to get revealed to you, and then like the dun, 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 like that music. I was like, what is happening? Movies don't normally do this to me. But because of that, I feel like the people who can critique a member berry movie the best, in my opinion, are the people who don't have any emotion associated to the member berries, where it just doesn't work on them. So like, I feel like it was actually really fair for us to go into Ghostbusters not knowing anything, and the fact that we still enjoyed it. Like, I don't believe Spider-Man, Matrix, I don't believe you could have gone into those movies without watching those past movies and gotten at least half of the movie. So I saw like a tweet, someone being amused that like they walked out of the Spider-Man movie, like watching Spider-Man, and they're like these two young Gen Z kids coming out, and they're like listening in on their conversation, seeing if they liked it or not. And then one kid asked the other, "Oh, did you know who the older Spider-Man were?" And then the kid's like, "I know who they are, but I never watched their movies." And so I was like, this movie, like half of this movie is about their, like, then you didn't understand why Andrew Garfield saving Mary Jane, why he was crying. You just thought he was fucking weird or something. Like,
you don't understand the impact of old Spider-Man going, "Don't do it, don't kill this guy," to young Spider-Man, because he's done it. he's done it before. Like, there's so like you look like a youth pastor joke doesn't they don't understand that. Or like every single time someone tells Andrew Garfield, "You're amazing," you know that, right? Like, you didn't get that joke. You just laughed because all the millennials in the theater laughed. Like, you aren't sentient. You're not like, you don't even understand why you like this movie. Is what I'm realizing. That like, and same thing from The Matrix. I'm actually really glad I watched the Matrix 2 and Matrix 3, because I would have been so lost. Like, I would be like, why is Jada Pinkett Smith in this movie? Why does she know Morpheus? Neo dies? How?
What's Zion?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. They briefly mention Zion in the first movie. And
so, like, it's stuff like that makes it really, really hard for someone who's completely new to these worlds to enjoy. And so, but like with Ghostbusters, I really, because you're learning about this world with Phoebe, it didn't leave the new audience hanging. The new generation of people that you're trying to get. The whole point of you doing this reboot sequel thing is you're trying to like get the new audience and the old audience and put them together so you make boatloads of money. Like, it feels like when you are too heavy-handed with the member berries to appease the fans, sometimes it can make, I always feel like these movies should stand on their own. If you take out all the member berries, it should still be a good movie. And I feel that way similarly to like jump scares in a movie. Like, a horror movie isn't necessarily defined by jump scares. And I just feel like it's unfair to be like, oh, these member berries need to be a certain way, because we were thinking about like, what about other movies? Like, there are other franchises that don't necessarily make the member berries a story point, but it's still effective and it doesn't distract from the movie. So there are like the emotional approach to doing member berries, which is kind of like the way Ghostbusters did it.
Yes. To spoil Ghostbusters Afterlife, the emotional member berry moment is Spengler, Ghost Spengler, joining young granddaughter Spengler into vanquishing, I forgot the goofy name of the villain in Ghostbusters, but they vanquish it together. And it's sort of like, oh, the old and the young, the passing of the torch. Like, this is like the new Spengler, this is the new Dan Aykroyd, this is basically Paul Rudd's the new Bill Murray. Like, everyone has their own role. It's very similar to Star Wars Force Awakens, where it's just like, it's the same characters but different people again. And that's kind of like a really emotional high point of the movie, because you really feel like there's some real drama that like, it was a group of friends that broke up, and there's a lot of like this character Spengler, I can't say it in any other way. He's kind of like you. He's like, Spengler's gonna do what Spengler's gonna do, and that causes problems with his family and with his friends. But then Spengler does what Spengler does because he thinks it's for the good of his friends and family,
of humanity, basically.
And like, you see that his ghost is in like the entire movie, and then this emotional moment happens, and it's great. And there's like this big emotional moment. And with Spider-Man, it's the Tobey Maguire telling young Spider-Man, no, don't kill the Goblin Man. It's not worth it. And we don't, like, as Spider-Man, we don't kill, And it's sort of like the young. It's like the scene in Into the Spider-Verse with like bum Peter Parker telling Miles Morales, hey man, this is the way of the Spider-Man. We don't do this shit. And it's very, like, again, very reverent of like being respectful. Peter Parker doesn't blatantly kill people, no matter what vendetta he has over people. Batman. That's really cool to see. But like, I think that a lot of the member berry moments in Spider-Man are wouldn't it be really fucking cool if this happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, with Spider-Man, it felt more clinical compared to Ghostbusters. It felt
like,
very,
let's design these moments to be as crazy and as awesome as possible,
so you can talk about
and to elicit the maximum reaction.
Yeah, so I saw like posts, I think on Twitter, where people were like, oh, they did the meme where like the Spider-Men are pointing at each other, because it was like all the Spider-Men together.
Wait, they did that? I didn't even notice that.
It was barely the meme. I feel like people were projecting.
Oh.
But it was like they're all standing together. It's like, oh, look, they did the meme.
Oh, I see.
So it's like they designed moments, like member berry moments, for people to like talk about. So like, in my opinion, the most effective member berries are the ones I mentioned, where like Andrew Garfield saves Mary Jane to rewrite his wrong, I guess, and then Tobey Maguire saying like, oh, don't do it, dude,
because
it's not
truly
worth it.
The killing of Goblin, even in Tobey's universe, is sort of like prevalent the entire movie. It haunts him the entire movie. So it's nice to see Tobey go like, dude, if you kill him, things just get bad. Just don't do it,
But then there are so many moments where like it just feel like to say, "Oh, you're amazing" to Andrew Garfield all the time, or like it's just cute, fun moments, or to see to physically see all the different Spider-Men from all the previous generations of the franchise in itself is like a memorable moment where it's just fun to see. And but it's not like emotional. Like I don't go like, oh, I'm seeing them all together. It's just like, oh, that's cool. So there's that kind of approach, which I think is fine too. Whatever. But then the one I have the biggest problem with, which I think is probably the reason why Kermode really disliked Ghostbusters, is when you feel like people are putting memorable moments in it, not even doing those two things, to be emotional or to just be like, oh, it'd be cool to see this happen. They're just doing it just to like, oh, remember this? Ah, you remember that. Remember this? You remember that. So
that's what Star Wars Force Awakens
felt like.
Yeah.
Also, I think Matrix 4's opening is probably the most egregious version of that, where like,
remember this?
It literally opens the same way Matrix 1 opens, but like with new characters, but like they're not trying to. I don't even remember what the point was of doing that. Yeah, it just felt like we're gonna do the same thing. Literally, remember. Yes, I remember, but what is the point? Never mind about the point. Just, you remember? Cool, we did the thing.
All right, Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. And I just felt like that's a way to like waste screen time and not do anything with it. But I also acknowledge, like, it feels like when I say that, it feels subjective, because I'm sure Kermode felt that way about Ghostbusters. He thought it was lazy. He felt like it was basically that, like, oh, look, there's that moment from that movie and there's that moment. So I ended up feeling like there is an aspect of subjectivity to member berries, because like if you are nostalgic about it, sometimes it can be a detriment, because then it does feel like, oh, like you're just showing that to me and I'm not feeling anything.
Right. I can feel a lot of audience members going, you're wrong. I feel really, really strong about the Spider-Man moments more than the Phoebe moments. That's fine. Yeah. I just think we need to have a conversation about our member berries. Like I don't want to hear the whole like, oh, this member berry is a bad thing and this member berry is a good thing. I don't think anyone has a good argument
for that.
Answer. Yeah. And if you do, let us know in the comments. But like, I really, because it's so subjective.
Yeah.
The member berry is designed for you to like elicit an intense emotional response. Yeah. So how the heck are you supposed to like give granted you've fallen hook, line, and sinker for the member berry, how are you supposed to, credibly judge the movie?
Yeah. That's why I just felt very like for the first time, I felt like I couldn't really trust Kermode's reviews recently, because I was like, well, you love Licorice Pizza for reasons I can't possibly love it. And you hate Ghostbusters for reasons I can't possibly hate it for either too. And for whatever reason, you love you can't explain why you like Spider-Man. But like we all like know, like I feel like I can trust someone who says, for example, with us and Matrix, that I understand it's my bias speaking when I'm like, I kind of like Matrix 4. But I also am willing to admit that like it's not a good movie though. And that's me trying to like see past my bias. But we also, there's an aspect of all these memorable movies that are also about like cross-generational breeding, or getting everyone to go watch your movie.
It's not as dirty as it sounds. I promise. It's basically the whole idea. Like we've mentioned again, it's the Spengler and the young Spengler. It's the Tom Holland and the Tobey Maguire. The whole point of these movies, strategically for the studios, is to bridge the gap between the young audiences who like are, they don't know what to like anymore, and the new audiences who are like, let me share this thing that I like with the young people. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing a lot of examples of this, because I don't know, I mean, like, I don't blame the studios for trying to extend these properties.
Yeah.
Be nice if there were new ones, but that's a different conversation for different podcasts, I think.
And I think the best way to do it is we were talking about this, and I just felt like these are really tough movies to do because you're walking such a tightrope. You have to balance so many things of like how much member berries is too much, how much member berries when they're too essential to the story itself.
Are
Does
you
it
alienating people?
yeah, who maybe don't remember, or can't like maybe they weren't even born yet or haven't watched it, and how much is too much, how much is like you're confusing people, and how much is like not enough, and you're angering the fans that you're not like doing the thing that everyone wants you to do. And I definitely felt like, though, overall I think these movies should be treated like standalone movies all the time, where like they should hold up without the member berries. They should hold up. And if you do have a few, that's fine, but like they should be treated like a whole, I think, first and foremost for new viewers, while also being faithful to who that character is. So, for example, Batman killing people is like odd, or like James Bond being a dad is
And dying.
odd.
Strange.
Yeah.
Very, very weird.
Not like not their character.
No,
That's
James
not,
Bond doesn't die,
yeah.
nor does he have kids.
Yeah.
Nope.
So I think that's all I ask for as someone who like, I'll watch like a member berry movies, whatever.
It's like watching like a horror movie.
Yeah.
I'll go for the member berry, sure.
Yeah.
But you better give, like, you're responsible for giving me a good time.
Yeah, that's all I asked for.
Yeah.
And the whole idea that member berries need to have a story point. It needs to be so important. It needs to be used in this way or that
Suddenly,
way.
when people talk about how, like, have esoteric talk about how member berries should be, I go like, no.
No,
dude.
yeah.
This is, like, member berries are the most shallow plot devices ever.
Yeah.
like to have a serious discussion about, like, oh, this is what makes one better than the other. Like, no way, come on.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about, like, does it make me feel something, or is it just an aesthetic that, like, it doesn't matter?
Yeah.
And is it more annoying and detrimental to the movie?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because like we said, we keep comparing it to like a plot device. It's like you don't blame necessarily a bad horror movie on a lazy jump scare. Like if like it's all about balance. Like one of my favorite horror movies, Insidious 3, has like, I think, a good balance of like smaller jump scares and like crazy try hard jump scares.
Insidious 3, I don't even know what happens in that story, but it's just an experiment of how intricate can we make the jump scare.
Yeah.
There's this insane sequence where, like, the camera is on, like, some sort of crane or dolly, and, like, the character, after a session or two of near jump scare moments, looks down, and the camera looks down and looks back up, and there's, like, a slew of jump scares, and then when you think it's all over, another jump scare. It's just ridiculous.
I was just like screaming nonstop.
And like, it's that kind of stuff where it's just like, I can appreciate the technical, goofy, like, fun stuff of like creating this jump scare. Like, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
I don't feel like, oh, it's cheap. I don't feel, I don't have personal feelings, or I don't feel emasculated just because I got by a jump scare.
Yeah.
In fact, I appreciate it. When I get got, I go like, oh wow. It's hard to get me. You're like, you really got me. You know? I feel like a lot of people get offended.
Yeah.
when they
But like,
fall for one.
I think the reason why those jump scares work one right after the other is the pacing is so amazing. Where like it takes so long, the first one, because like they don't treat you with kitty gloves in that movie. They really like tease you until you can't take it anymore, and then they jump scare you. But then the next one happens like right after, because you're not expecting another one to like happen. So that one's
And then
faster,
relief.
quicker.
Yeah.
And so like that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes a quote unquote lazy jump scare or like a not as try hard one works in like the context of things. But I was also thinking, as like, there are a lot of people who don't like horror.
Come on, horror's so fun. I get so giddy talking about horror. Oh, this is such a fun genre.
But like James Bond, for example, is a really fantastic example of member berries being really not forefront and important sometimes. Because like the entire franchise of James Bond is a member berry.
It's existed for that long.
Yeah.
I think a prerequisite for doing member berries is you have to have something to member.
Yes.
Yeah. And like James Bond for forever, I think ever since, even after Her Majesty's, just kept being so self-referential.
Yeah. So like there's so many like Bond-isms, like shaken, not stirred, and you know that Bond drives an Aston Martin, and you know like Q, and you know Moneypenny, and you know M, and you know
Felix.
You know Felix, and all of these things. If every single one of these member berries took forefront, that would be a nightmare of a movie. But sometimes like Moneypenny has a really big role, sometimes she doesn't. Sometimes they really show off the car, sometimes they don't if the car doesn't play a huge part in that movie. Sometimes, and like the craziest one that's so subtle that I can remember for Bond is in Skyfall. The first time you see that door.
In the end of the movie?
Yeah. You see that tufted door for the first time, and in all of Daniel Craig's version of Bond, you haven't seen it.
You haven't seen that door since what's his face? Since Sean Connery, I think, something like that.
Yeah, because they took a whole like Bourne ultimatum turn for a while.
the Office looked different.
Yeah. So to see that again, it doesn't detract from the movie, because if you aren't aware of the Bond franchise, you probably just think it's a cool door. Bond's visiting the office for the first time, and that's what it looks like. You just think it's whatever. But as a Bond fan, you see it, and you're like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that where, I mean, like, what about those moments? Are those not effective memorabilia moments? And like, so to all the people who are like, well, it has to be like really like a story point. It has to be all like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be any of that. This is art, okay? Don't stop telling directors. And I feel it. I feel like directors of movies and writers of movies have all this pressure from fans. And they're hearing all these things from critics and everything, and they're trying so hard. They're trying so hard to please everyone. When I'm just like, just let them do whatever they want. It's fine. I don't think people who have never made movies have any can say anything to directors about how they should or should not use a memorabilia. It's just kind of ridiculous to me.
And then I think there's this new thing happening. I think it's the multiverse. We did the multiverse, man. So, Spider-Man, multiverse.
Yeah.
Now, Spider-Man, basically the first. I mean, Flashpoint. They were making the DC Flashpoint movie for forever now. But I guess Spider-Man came first and basically taught everybody, oh, this is how a Spider-Man. I mean, this is how multiverse is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. It's like time travel but sideways. You have all these rules and tropes and what if things, and it's a thing in a movie now, because pretty soon we're going to see this Flashpoint movie, I assume, break up the DC universe, and it's just like, I guess this is what we're going to do now. And I started thinking, you know what, you could do this to almost anything.
Yeah.
I seriously think there's a I'm going to pitch to you how they metaverse James Bond right now.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
All they have to do to metaverse James Bond is basically go through the entire recruitment of how they find a James Bond. Technically, I think in the stories, James Bond is an orphan. So I could imagine the movie opening up in an orphanage. And the same cast of characters from the Bond movies try to recruit this punk-ass orphan who becomes the next James Bond. And you could see it because then, oh no, all of these other James Bonds show up. Pierce Brosnan shows up. And Timothy Dalton shows up.
Suddenly, everything is canon. You have to explain, how Daniel Craig died.
Daniel Craig died, and then how did Pierce Brosnan pass it to Daniel Craig, and how did, what happened to you, Timothy Dalton? Oh, I got it to Shakespeare. All this ridiculous stuff. And I just think, but let's pretend this ridiculous fucking crazy new Bond movie comes out where they just break every single wall
that
they've ever all the unspoken things that they said in James Bond, they basically put out in the open. So then they explain like, oh, what happens to all the other Qs and all this ridiculous shit. Let's say that happens. Where does the story go from there? You know what I mean? It just goes. It doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. And that's what I think about the multiverse stuff.
Yeah.
Imagine the Flashpoint stuff happens. We see Michael Keaton. We see what's his name, Christian Bale. Mm-hmm. And now it's possible, just like in Columbia's properties, that like, oh, for WB to bring back Christian Bale and Nolan, that's possible now. Like if with this hopefully with this Flashpoint movie, all bets are off. Mm-hmm. What does cinema look like for these blockbuster movies in 5 or 10 years? It's just gonna look like a bunch of one-off Logan movies, Joker movies. Mm-hmm. And I just think all of this metaverse shit is like a waste of time. Let's go straight into telling a really amazing one-off story about Batman, or even about man, it would be nice to see that again in the Marvel stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I just want a really good story about one of my favorite characters, you know, like and like I like, or if we're not into that, then let's just make a new thing. Yeah. You know, like all this metaverse stuff. It's like,
it's ridiculous. So we got
like, imagine how ridiculous that would be with James Bond meeting James Bond and going, hey, we're James Bonds.
We don't need that. Know? We don't need that, because like the original Q and Moneypenny were the Q and Moneypenny for like 3 different Bonds. Like, how are they going to explain this? Like every time they don't have to have a send off too when they pass the baton to a different Bond. I just thought it was very strange the way they felt like they really had to do that for Daniel Craig. Obviously because of the times that we're in, and everyone seems to want some kind of like canon through line, which I'm like, a lot of the times Bond movies are just like villain of the day type movies. And
how's Bond gonna save the world this time?
Yeah, and it almost doesn't matter who plays who, you know. Like you just understand this is our Bond for this movie, and this is our Moneypenny, and this is our Q. But we were talking about this because I was like, you know, I don't think a lot of people understand where the multiverse came from, originated. Like obviously in comics, yes, but like the reason why it's a thing is because you can write these characters only so much until like writers and artists for things like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, it'd be nice to have a blank slate. It would be nice to be able to do new things instead of just continue the same storyline forever. So they'll be like, okay, we're gonna like make a whole nother universe and pretend like it's like a whole new like Batman, whatever, and you can do whatever you want now. And it really opens up, when you had so many stories with this character, it really opens up like new opportunities for new artists, new writers to put their stamp on something. And that's the only reason why this idea of the multiverse exists. It's literally because comics have existed for that long, and there's so many stories that like artists and writers need some outlet to do something different. And then I honestly don't feel like comic book movies and movies in general have done enough of that. You know, like I feel like you don't have any more original stories to tell, because it takes a long time to make a movie compared to writing an issue of a comic book. You know what I mean? So like there's so many comic book stories that exist, and that's the only reason why they had to do the multiverse thing. Movies, you've only been doing comic book movies for like what, a decade?
James Bond's been doing it for 3.
You can, yeah, exactly. Like I can kind of excuse James Bond for that. So when movies do the multiverse thing, I really feel like it's like a jump the shark moment, because what I realized by the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, it really does feel like, for whatever reason, Tom Holland is saying bye-bye. I'm not gonna be Spider-Man anymore.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm reading too deeply into it, but like the fact that Spider-Man puts on the Spider-Man suit, like what everyone considers like that's the Spider-Man suit. Out of every suit that's ever existed, that's Peter. That's kind of cool to see. But it begs the question of like, what does that mean? Like is this some sort of thing that like the studio is telling us, Columbia is telling us, we want to go back to our roots, and not, you know, enough of this ridiculous Marvel stuff? Because man, when Andrew Garfield told us that like shit got hard and bad for him, I want to know. And that seems like a very intimate Logan like story. And that's just like yeah, sure, would it be cool to see Tom Holland have the Venom suit? Would it be cool to see, like, I can imagine the next Spider-Man movie, Eddie Brock and Tom Holland are applying for a job at the Bugle. And it's just the hijinks between Venom and Spider-Man. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it could be anything. Like, do we really want to see that again? Or do you want... I want to see that shit with fucking Andrew Garfield. How bad does it get for him? Like, how... Man, like, the end of Spider-Man 2, it's so strange that, like, just, like, Spider-Man gets over Gwen's death by just watching the graduation video, basically.
Yeah.
But, like, I wonder if they could just retcon that and go, like, maybe there's, like, a story here about, like, you know, forgiving yourself and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That could be really interesting to say. And, like, it's those types of small, intimate stories that I want to see. And like, I feel like all of this metaverse stuff, all this Memberberry stuff is great. Like, holy shit, we are at this phase in technology, and we can fund movies to the point where we can bring all these talented people together to create the ultimate geekdom fantasy. Cool. Let's go back to that Logan stuff. You know, let's go back to the very intimate stories between, like, because those are the stories that we remember. Those are the really, really just human moments between characters. That's the stuff that, like, I don't know, that, like, hits me really hard.
The multiverse stuff, really, especially with the Spider-Man, the newest Spider-Man movie, I felt like the question "what next" comes up a lot. Once it's done, and like the saddest part is, like, once you've jumped that shark, you've done it, and like you either have to keep topping yourself, or like there is nothing, like you've written yourself into a hole, and I think the only natural next thing is either a reboot or other standalone movies to continue trying to do, like, that's why I feel like truly when you do like a multiverse type story, it feels like you ran out of creativity and you have nothing left to do, so you're gonna rely on the Memberberry aspect of the movie to get people butts in seats, and that's it. Like,
Remember the Matrix?
It's a quick buck, but then you've made it difficult for everyone else to follow this movie with something else or whatever. So I guess our point ends up being that, like, Memberberries are just a trope, just like in movies, just like a MacGuffin, just like a red herring, just like whatever. And it doesn't have to be something crazy.
We don't have to hate this too.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a way for a good story to be told with some Memberberries. In fact, like, we're at this point, I just don't see how we're going to escape it now. I feel like a lot of movies are just going to do this now.
And I think I really just, I don't like this whole, like, critics pontificating about, like, whether a movie is good or bad, but using Memberberries as an excuse as to why it's good or bad, and saying how it should have been used, or how it maybe just aren't nostalgic for that movie, or maybe, like, I feel like a lot of people right now aren't aware of their bias.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not their fault. Like, I don't think it's Cremone's fault that he absolutely adores Licorice Pizza, but I just don't understand why how he can justify that, like, Spider-Man is a much better movie than Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Without saying, like, maybe it is because he has a bias towards Ghostbusters, because he in my opinion has a deeper association with that franchise than probably with just, like, another comic book blockbuster movie which he thinks is fine. It's a fine movie. And I think, like, if Memberberries offend you that much, then don't watch a Memberberry movie.
Like, the same way, like, if jump scares offend you that much and it's too cheap of it, then don't watch horror movies. Like, I don't...
If you groan and loudly in a theater
Yeah.
because you see a member berry or there's a member berry moment, what are you doing watching a member berry movie?
Yeah, you know what you're watching, right?
Yeah.
And same thing could be said for, like, gratuitous fight scenes. Some people don't love action movies because they're more into, like, the heady and the drama. Some people don't like whodunit movies because they think it's ridiculous or
boring or whatever it is. Yeah, I was really excited to do this episode because it's not like we're upset with a lot of these critics. I think this thing is just so new and weird that we haven't had a discussion about member berries, period. Yeah. And I'd like people to have a conversation about member berries, because I feel like the smarter we are as moviegoers, maybe the better the movies will be.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think when people start treating member berries as just like an optional just device that you can use or not use, make important, not make important, but don't like like I understand why, like, these movies that are making the entire movie about the member berry, but like it's so much. Yes. We
are going to recommend a clip from the Lex Fridman and Tim Dillon podcast.
Why?
Because I was just watching. I've been getting really into Tim Dillon, and I mean he has had podcasts with many of people I like too, like Lex, and he has this amazing clip because like Lex reminds me of you. Yeah. And in this conversation, Tim Dillon reminds me of me. And there's this moment where just like Tim asks Lex, like, have you not lived real life? Why are you this idealistic? You know what I mean?
And I would explain exactly, like, I understand Lex on a very deep level. He seems naive, but this is the difficult thing about being an INTJ female. Because I am a woman, I feel like people can discount my idealism as being young and naive, especially because people think I'm a lot younger than I actually am. But like with men who have the same idealistic yet pragmatic qualities, they understand that Lex is a very intelligent, highly capable, highly successful human being. So he can't be just straight naive. So they understand that this is just part of his strangeness, his character, that he's like idealistic. But at the same time, they don't understand it because they're just like, they ask him questions like that. Have you not lived real life? Have you, what does Tim say? That's amazing. He says, have you never talked to a stupid person? Because I understand, like, you're really smart and you're so accomplished that you just surrounded yourself by very intelligent people. And like Lex says, like, well, I don't necessarily think intelligence is a sign of intelligence, is basically what he's saying. And I've literally said that to you. A lot of people in my life growing up think I'm judging them and I think they're stupid, because it's just a thing with me and my face. But like, I try to get them to understand I don't think you're stupid. Just because I seem very brainy and nerdy or whatever, it doesn't mean that I think that is how the only version of intelligence that exists. I think there are a lot of people far more intelligent than me in a lot of different ways. So like, people who have more street smarts than me, who just know how to be more charismatic than me. I think that is a different kind of intelligence that I don't even know how to like achieve and be and stuff like that. And like Lex tries to explain this concept and I'm like, why do I understand this man on such a deep level? But then I also laughed at Tim Dillon because Tim Dillon is what Vincent is actually like.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes. Vincent's like very nice and like easygoing, and everyone loves you.
Everyone hates me.
You're like an angel. But no, on the inside,
I'm like Biscuit.
You're Tim Dillon. You have very low expectations for everyone. So when Tim Dillon was like, have you not talked to stupid people?
I laughed so hard, man. Oh my god.
Oh, because, like, I can't tell you how many times Vincent has said that to me. If you like this episode of the podcast, hit the like button. Check out these other episodes over here to binge all our other episodes. And I'll see you next time.
Bye.